being here today. A lot of you are calling in from home. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, so let's begin with this. Today, on this sheep scale, how are you feeling today? Go ahead and drop your number in the chat box. Cracking up looking at number 3. I feel like number 4 right now. Lori is a 5. Oh, okay. 5s. A lot of 5s today. All right. Oh, a 7. Oh, 2. Tiffany, yep, you kind of look like, turn your head a little bit. You look 5. Megan's a 2 also. Jamila, you're a 3. Oh my gosh, who was like, and Paula, you're a 4. Paula, is that because you're home today? Let's see.
Oh, a little bit of a whole lot.
Put the bucket on and keep it moving, right? Okay. All right. Let's see. Jamila, why are you a 3 today?
Well, I really took that in as like, I'm here, but like peeking out a little bit, like a little daunting. Third quarter for me is always daunting. It's not close enough to the beginning to be fresh, and it's not close enough to the end to be like, we can do this. So I'm just sort of like, should I come out or not?
Should I stay behind here or should I come out, right?
I'm hide behind these luscious curls.
Yeah, they are luscious curls. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for sharing how you're doing on our sheep scale today. Feel free to use this with your mentee or even with your direct reports. I think this one is absolutely hilarious, especially number 4. I like the bucket over the head. That's so funny to me. All right, so today in our session, we're going to explore challenging conversations, your favorite. So if you are not a 4, maybe you want to put the bucket on your head today. I don't know. We're going to be networking and then reviewing our upcoming topics and development opportunities. We're going to do this by examining the framework and crucial accountability, by sharing best practices, and then reviewing our mentor learning track. And so today, I'm very excited to announce that for our mentor development session portion of this meeting, I have the lovely Miss Kiera Burton, who is joining us, and she is going to speak with us about crucial accountability. Take it away and welcome, Kiera.
Hello. So, Emily reached out about me joining this session primarily because more recently at our face-to-face that we had with the new deans in January, we did cover having these challenging conversations. Some of you were actually there, so this might sound more of a repeat. But what we did was we took a little dive into just some strategies that could be used around having challenging conversations, as we know you guys experience having those quite a bit. And we got most of our information from the book Crucial Accountability. Some of you may be familiar with it or not. Like if it's not a book that you have, it's definitely a good one. The authors of this book also wrote, hold on one second. So the authors of this book also did Crucial Conversations as well. So this focus was more on accountability. So how do you hold those folks accountable? What we also made sure we were to do was to note the alignment or the connection to the instructional coaching conversation or instructional coaching cycle, and how this falls into the monitoring progress phase or stage of the instructional coaching cycle. Anytime we're presenting to deans, we don't want them to feel as though this is just something else or we just pull something out of nowhere. There is a connection here, and it does go hand in hand with the other things that they have learned, whether it be from Leadership Summit or just things that they're doing in their building. So our direct connection was to that phase of monitoring the progress, because that is that phase where you're having those conversations with your direct reports. And some of those are challenging, and some of them you just simply need to hold them accountable to something. So that was our connection there. From there, we went on to give them more of a scenario. which I am going to tell you what that is in a second. But we gave them a scenario and we had them focus on just like, what are these key moves that the dean is doing or using? And it was sectioned off with before, during, and after. The scenario that I'm going to pose for you all is just simply the before one. I'm not going to dig deeper into the during and after scripts that we did. However, if you would like to see them just for reference, I'll make sure that I share them with Emily so that she can provide them to you in like your follow-up. So we put this image up, and with this image, we just kind of gave them some background information. And the background information was that the dean and the teachers had agreed that all students should transition between classes at a level 0. And while the dean is actually walking down the hallway, she noticed that a group of students were actually in the hallway talking. The teacher did not address the students at all for their behavior, even though they had all agreed that it would be a level 0. The dean had already talked to this teacher once before about holding the kids accountable. And so what we did was we wanted them to just kind of think about what are some key moves, as I'm going to read to you a think aloud from the dean, but what are some key moves that the dean was doing before having that accountability conversation? So in terms of the think aloud, I'm just letting you know I'm reading this portion so I can make sure I capture everything that needs to be said. Says, I can't believe she did that. We just talked about this last week. What is her problem? She thinks she can just do whatever she wants, no matter what I say or what the team decides. Is she trying to deliberately undermine me? Why won't she just do what she says she would do? Okay, let's calm down. Deep breath. What's the real issue here? She ignored the students talking, and that's a problem. She's got to redirect that behavior or we'll have chaos in the hallways again. It also makes all of the other teachers who are enforcing the expectation look like the bad guys. If Miss White from down the hall sees her doing that, she will lose her mind. The last thing we need is those two getting into it. What annoys me even more, though, is that we already talked about it and she agreed that she would do it next time. I'm really starting to feel like I can't trust her to do what she says she's going to do. That's really what I'm concerned about. Even if I get her to redirect students, I need to know that I can trust her to follow through when she agrees to do something. I don't want her to think that it's okay for her to ignore decisions that the team makes. I also want our relationship to be built on trust and respect and not feel like I have to monitor her all the time. But why would she do it? Let me give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she's not doing it to defy me or undermine the team. What could be causing her to ignore the students' behavior? Is it possible that she doesn't know how to redirect students? Does she not feel comfortable doing it? Maybe she's afraid that they won't stop and then she doesn't know what she'll do next if they don't stop. If I want to solve the problem, I'm going to have to talk to her. I'll wait until later when I'm not so irritated. So we presented this scenario to the deans and we asked them to just pull out, like, what are some of those before things that they heard the dean doing before actually having that conversation. And Emily, can you drop the link to the document I share with you in the chat box?
Yep, just give me 1 minute to grab
Okay.
it.
So what we did was we provided them some guided strategies, like I said, before, during, and after, which I'm going to walk you all through. So one of the things that we told them or gave them a strategy around is determining the concerns. So making sure that you're actually talking about the right problem. So there was a lot that was in that transcript or that read aloud, think aloud that I just did. Can you guys identify what the problem is here with this teacher? Like, what would you say the problem is?
Sorry, that might be the wrong thing. Don't click on it.
Oh, it's okay. But anybody on the call, based upon the think aloud, what would you think is the problem at hand? Okay, why would she not honor the norm to transition the kids at a level 0? Any others?
Are we doing chat box or we can talk
Yeah,
out?
I do either. It doesn't matter to me.
I think that maybe she just doesn't know how to hold the students accountable in the hard way.
Because I did not tell you what year of a teacher she was. Maybe she's a first year teacher and perhaps doesn't know. Any other ones that you guys want to add? So the document that Emily just shared, it starts off with some of those first key moves that should be considered prior to actually having a conversation with a teacher. Like I said, the first one is determining what those concerns are. So as you heard in that think aloud, that's what the dean was doing. She was trying to determine like what her concerns are. She was also trying to kind of gather herself. I think sometimes we can be irritated with somebody, especially if we've already had this conversation with them. They are yet doing something that they said they weren't going to do. Now they're doing it again. That could bring on some irritation. And when we're dealing with adults, we know that's always fun. And they're sometimes the hardest ones to deal with over kids. So with that being said, sometimes we have to work on ourselves, gather ourselves, or even not just in a scenario of dean to teacher, it could even be a conversation that needs to be had with a parent. You might have to hold a parent accountable in regards to how we behave when we're in the school building, what's acceptable, what's not. So we gave them these first key moves to consider prior to having a conversation. So make sure you are talking about the right problem. I wouldn't say that the teacher is trying to undermine. Maybe it is simply an issue of she just doesn't know. And then we have other things that we could assist that teacher with in helping her have a better understanding of like how to make these things happen. Also working on yourself, making sure that you are right as the person that's delivering the conversation, and then shifting from making accusations to curiosity. So as you heard towards the end, she was saying, I'm just going to have a conversation with her. The next thing that we said was a part of like determining that concern and making sure you're talking about the right problem is this CPR method. And what the CPR method is, first looking at that content. What content do you have? What exactly happened? Is this a pattern? Has it happened before? What's your relationship with this teacher and how it could even be impacted? So maybe y'all have established a great relationship, maybe you haven't. That also helps determine how you're going to approach this conversation. So after that, we also talked about like what could happen if you don't address this behavior. So as you heard this dean processing, Miss White down the hall probably gonna get upset and they might go at it because she following the expectations and this other teacher is not. And you guys see it all the time. When one person is doing what they're supposed to be doing and someone isn't. That's why we have to hold folks accountable, because we set this as I hate to say like a rule, but we agreed to do this. Therefore, we need to make sure we're following through on it. So we just really wanted to hit home with them. Like, these are some things that you should be doing. If you're not doing it, here are some ways that you can get started with making it happen. But also reiterating the fact that we do care about building those relationships and considering how your relationship could potentially be impacted based upon the conversation. The other part, when we talked about master your stories, and that piece about working on yourself first and then shifting from accusation to curiosity, the first thing you kind of notice that Dean doing is kind of, okay, I'm not ready to have this conversation. Like, I need to stay calm, breathe, all of that stuff. So first, just be calm. Also, try not to flip the script. Don't just jump to certain things. Don't accuse. Really come from a place of trying to understand, and then just giving the benefit of the doubt. I know a lot of times here at NHA, we like to say, assume the best intent. I have thoughts on that, but we like to say, we want to assume that someone is not intentionally trying to derail things and really getting down to what the problem is. The next thing that we did in terms of the key moves fall under the during. So what should happen during the conversation? The only reason why I'm not reading the script for that portion, because it's kind of long and it's a lot of back and forth between the dean and the teacher. But what you want to do, or what we told them they should do, or some best practices, is first establish safety, basically maintaining that mutual respect and mutual purpose. Also describe the gap. So explain that difference between what's actually expected versus what's observed. Remember, we talked previously, they had this conversation before. They had all said and agreed that they were going to have that level 0. Then you present the issue and describe what you have noted the problem to be, and then gather information in order to solve the problem by simply just asking questions. We can learn a lot by simply just asking someone as opposed to assuming certain things. And so then we dug in deeper to each of those key moves. And so we talked about why it's even important to establish safety first, primarily because sometimes people jump on a defense, right? Sometimes if it's not a safe conversation, they're immediately coming at you, and you don't want that to be a thing. So establish some type of safety, whether it is you meeting in a common space in their classroom, not sitting across the other side of the desk with them, but make sure there's safety in that type of conversation. Make sure the atmosphere or environment that you're in is a pretty, comfortable one, and one where you both can respect one another. I would even perhaps ask for some permission. Can I talk to you about this? Can we dive into this? This might be a hard conversation to have, but let's make sure you're establishing that safety. The next piece that we dove into was describing the gap. So that part about explaining that difference between what's expected and what's observed, that part where we've kind of agreed to do this, but this is what I saw when I was walking down the hallway. One of the things that took place in the conversation, or one of the things that we pulled out, were things that the dean didn't do. For example, the dean didn't try to set a trap. The dean didn't try to play a guessing game or pass the buck or assign any type of motive or provide any excuses for the teacher. They just simply focused on what they saw versus what was agreed upon, and how what they saw could potentially be an issue. The other part was actually presenting the issue. So describe what the problem is. Like, when we don't have all people on board, this creates, didn't say chaos in the conversation, but it does in fact create chaos. It creates misalignment within the team, within the wing. Just presenting that. I will make sure we share the script, but what happened in the script, or the conversation between the two, is that the teacher did give a lot of pushback and said she had great classroom management in her classroom. Why does she have to stand out and monitor the kids in the hallway? She also brought up the fact that, she did in fact care what other people thought about her, and she didn't want her teammates to think that she wasn't on board with doing things that they had agreed upon. So that's ultimately what got her to see and understand that, yeah, I need to get on board. I need to make sure that I'm addressing the kids just like everyone else is addressing them. So the dean did describe what the problem was, but she also asked, like, what could I do to help you? And so what we later went into with our deans during that time was talking about like will and skill. I'm sure you all have heard about will and skill quite a bit, whether you joined the Leadership Summit session or you just been around enough to have heard these things dropped quite a bit. But we tapped on it just a little bit. We didn't get too far in depth because will and skill can be a big umbrella of things to cover. I will add, though, we are covering it in our next session. So they'll get a little bit more of that. And we did tell them that. So this part about asking a question and gathering more information on how to help solve this problem. So if the teacher is in fact, not equipped with the skills to do this, how can we help her to have the skills? Is it establishing like a routine when she steps out first? Then she checks someone what to do in the fact of someone not doing what she asked them to do, whatever the case. So we went through that whole process. And so what Emily shared with you all was just kind of like a recap of all of those things. After that, the after portion is just simply, we told them to listen, to differentiate their responses based upon whether it was a will or skill issue, and then determine some type of plan. So you have that as well. I don't know what type of things they're coming to you with, or if any of them have described what that face-to-face was like for them or some challenges they're having. But if you could help or play through some scenarios, if they come or present some type of issue that they're having with a teacher, or maybe you even just ask them like, hey, do you have any challenging teachers? Describe a situation. Hey, you want to go through these before, during, and after to help them prepare for a conversation. Because what we have learned in the new dean role, the greatest challenge is holding people accountable. And when we surveyed DSQs, in fact, that was the one thing they said they wanted us to make sure we hit on a little bit more, is how to hold folks accountable and having those challenging conversations. One of the other things we told them was, it's one thing to coach someone and coach them around content, instruction, but some things are just simple conversations. Like, you either doing something or you're not, and we need to address it. And then how do you have those types of conversations? How do you truly hold someone accountable? One of the other things that came up in that meeting too is, you all have some new deans who are now deans of a wing that they just served on, or that they were partners, teaching partners with. So it's hard to hold your buddies accountable to certain things. So these were some strategies that they can in fact use. All in all, it was a really great day to just have with them and be able to process through things. As you will see once we share that script, it was very real. We made sure we gave a real scenario that they could truly experience with someone giving pushback, especially when you have more of a veteran teacher who might feel like they got this. They don't need to be micromanaged. Little favorite phrase, but they don't need to be micromanaged. And or you're a new dean, how are you going to tell me? So we hope that if they are coming to you with some of these types of conversations, a way that we all can be aligned is by kind of reiterating, here are some steps that you can follow. And I know I talked a ton and didn't open it up much to you all, but I more so wanted you to know. Sorry, Emily, if I didn't do what you want me to do. But I more so wanted you to know exactly what we provided them with, and how, we presented it so that if they do come to you, you can help them out. I don't recall a lot of them saying they were having a lot of struggles, but again, when you're in such a larger group, sometimes people aren't willing to share that. But as you all are meeting with them in a more one-on-one type of scenario, maybe they will share those things with you, and then you have some things that you can help them with. I will say, do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions?
And I hope this was useful. And if you need more information, like, you could either reach out to Emily and ask her for, or you can reach out to me directly. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and this is something, mentors, that you mentioned, new deans were struggling with as well. So not only were DSQs recognizing this is something that you shared in the survey, which I guess I should have said at the beginning, Kiera, is I invited Kiera to come along because instead of giving them a bunch of different processes and things to think about, if we all stick with the same one when we're helping them through these challenging conversations and challenging times, I think having that consistency will really help them to get better at it, because these challenging conversations are typically not anyone's favorite, right? So, but when you have a process, and the more they practice, the better they'll get at it. And having you as a resource is also incredible, because they can practice with you and make sure that they're comfortable before they have the conversation, especially many of you are not in the same building. So that's also helpful. Any questions though? I didn't see anything pop up in the chat box. Or anyone want to unmute and ask the wise and wonderful Kiera Burton a question about this process? All right. If feel like that's appropriate wait time. Well, thank you, Kira, for joining us. I appreciate you so much. And then, like Kira said, we'll get those scripts to you as well, so you can see how the whole conversation went. All right, thanks, Kira. Take care. We are now going to jump into the next portion of our meeting, which is networking. And today, these are some more topics that our deans have been struggling with lately. So the first one that I wanted to talk to you about is best practices to engage new deans. So something that has come up in the survey is many of you have expressed that it's been a challenge to meet with some of your mentees. And so in a moment, I should say this, we're going to get into some breakouts, and we're going to use a Jamboard, and we'll have you to answer a couple of questions based on your particular topic. So topic 1 is best practices to engage new deans. So what ideas do you have? What's been successful in order to get them to join you for those conversations? Another topic is on leading effective O3s. So again, when meeting with teachers, some of them may be resistant to feedback, or they might take control of your whole time. You know, it's a half hour, it goes by pretty quick, and they've got a problem with this, and then this parent's calling them, and then someone messaged them on Class Dojo, and there's all these fires. But how do you ensure that you're able to get to what is most important and ensure that those O3s are effective? This is a really big one. The third one is prioritizing and time management. At this time of year, there's a lot going on, right? Like, we're getting ready for state testing. We have spring break. Everyone's like, when is summer coming? But then you have summer school coming up. There's so many things. I think, Jamila, you alluded to this a little earlier. The third quarter is like, we're not there yet, but we're almost there, right? So how do they know which items are most important? Oh, let me not forget full lesson observations, right? At the end of March, those are 1 month away. It's coming. And so what do you do first? How do you organize yourself? What are some best practices that you have? The next topic is on analyzing data. So for most people, interim one is definitely passed. Interim 2, people may be in the mix, like with their math a little bit still. ELA might be done, or you may be completely finished. But there's so many reports to look at, right? There's so many. So which ones are you finding to be beneficial? Where should they start with looking at those reports and looking at the data? And then finally, the instructional coaching cycle. So we've learned a lot about instructional coaching this year with our key levers, instructional strategies, and action steps. So what best practices have you been using as you've been navigating this cycle? So those are our 5 topics. So again, in a moment, you're going to go into a breakout room. You're going to be mixed up randomly. So you will see a number. Whatever number your breakout is the number that will match you with your Jamboard. So you and your partners can go ahead and jump into the Jamboard. Thank you, Patton has dropped that into the chat box. And whatever breakout number you are is the number that you will work on for the Jamboard. If you have time, you're welcome to go ahead and visit the other ones. When we come back from the breakouts, I would like you to pick one thing off of the slide that you feel is most valuable and would find it to be valuable to others. Okay, so as you get into these breakouts, you're going to answer these questions. What questions can I ask my mentee about this topic? Some ideas and strategies to utilize with your mentee, and then available resources to share. So any of those things that you have that you can drop in on that Jamboard slide, then this Jamboard will become a resource for us. Any questions before we begin? All right, and everyone has access to the Jamboard. All right, Patton, go ahead and drop our lovely guests into those breakout rooms. We'll see you back in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you found your networking time valuable. I see that we have a lot of great ideas. And as promised, we are going to go ahead and go through each group and have the group select one item that they feel is so amazing that everybody else needs to know about it, right? With your mentees. Okay, so group 1, we had best practices to engage new deans. And for those who are not attending the meeting, so in group 1, we had Hillary, Laura, Lauren, and Sarah. So if one of you could unmute and share which of those topics you felt were the best for best practices to engage new deans.
We kind of, the last little bit, we talked about all the resources that NHA does have, and sometimes we not forget about them, but kind of tuck them in the back of our mind because we know some information or something like that. So using those NHA created resources, and we mentioned about taking them on a walk through SLEET or a walk through CNA, Google Drive or something like that that has those resources, just so they become familiar with them.
Okay, so going through those with them during the meeting, yes. And I like the other ideas that are also shared on here. Just really making them feel like this time is really valuable and that they're getting something out of that time too to keep them coming back, right? Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing. Let's move into leading effective O3s with Dana, Kenya, Megan, and Tiffany. What did you find to be a really great idea for ensuring that our new deans are leading those effective O3s?
I can jump in. We had a lot of good conversation around this. I think the one thing that I would share out would just be like the questioning part of it, asking our mentees, like, how do you prepare for an O3? And asking them about, are they able to get through their agenda that they set? That way, from there, we could come up with like resources to pass along, or just, providing some insight into maybe how to change things up if they're struggling.
Right. And maybe also practicing with them, right? Like role playing, like we had just talked about with those challenging conversations, but role playing in O3 with the teacher that keeps interrupting and you can't get a word in to get through your coaching. Yes. Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing for group 2. Group 3 was on prioritizing and time management with Hannah, Jamila, and Nikki.
Jamila, tell them about your dashboard.
Oh, sure. So, long story short, I was trying to figure out a way to be able to keep new directs moving forward and learning the norms and all the things, but also to keep us normed in what we've normed. And so I came up with a dashboard that originally stemmed from me being in a Bitmoji group from COVID. And this teacher posted this like just sort of like framework. And I was like, this is genius. So I just deemed it, and it houses like all the things for my wing, like how to print a progress report, how to do this or that, staff handbook. Like it avoids like having 50 tabs up on your internet bar. And so it has been a lifesaver because I'm not getting stopped in the hallways to say, hey, check the resource hub. Oh, it's on the resource hub in this or that place. And so it's just been like a great way to sort of streamline and say, hey, check the resource hub first. And then if you don't see it, come to me. So it has been a time saver. And I shared it with one of my mentees earlier this week, and she was just like, I could cry. This is what I needed. So it's been awesome. And so this was at first I was just using it with the new directs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why don't I just share this with everybody? This year has been the first year that I shared it. And now we're going to make it like a school thing where it's just one stop for just all the things RTCA. So it's been awesome. Yes, I will drop the link for sure.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome, Jamila. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. So you don't keep getting stopped in the hallway is what you said. Just go to the hub. It's in the hub. Yeah. Right? Awesome. Time saver. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then when we get into analyzing data with Lori, Megan, and Paula, what one topic would you like to share with us that you discussed?
Share. We talked about like the different reports that we use and we like, and just how there's so many of them. So we talked about one good idea would be to walk through them instead of just saying like, oh, you can go to this one or this one or this one, like actually, sharing your screen and walking through them and saying why they're beneficial and talking through how they can incorporate them in their either like grade level team meetings or individualized with O3s. So I liked that idea.
I like that idea too, right? Not just assuming that one, do they even know where it is, right?
Right.
Because there's so many places where things are housed. I mean, data is typically like in a particular area. But yes, that's great. Thank you so much, Megan. And moving into our last topic of the instructional coaching cycle, we had Robin, Sally, Stacy, and Tanya. I think I said it right, Tanya.
So we talked a lot about just the intentionality of follow-up observations and utilizing the key lever document, just kind of coming back to those things and then looking at like what are student outcomes. So kind of goes into some of those O3 planning, conversations too, but a lot of it was just really, using the key levers and then being intentional about your observations. So you're gathering the right information.
Yes, especially with those more resistant veteran teachers, use that document and go to the student outcomes and say, how can we work together to make our students better? You're amazing. You're the veteran, you've got all this going on, but what if we tweak this just a little bit? Where would it take our students? So that's great. Thank you, Sally, so much for sharing. And again, shout out to Jamila for sharing her awesome resource. Everyone's like, woo, this has been amazing. So awesome.
Fire, Jamila, fire. Oh my God.
Jamila, look at all the lives you've just changed today, right? Like, yes. See, Paula, your meeting got changed from a Friday to a Wednesday for a good reason. Awesome.
Absolutely, yes. Oh my God, this is life changing. Oh my God, are you freaking kidding me?
Oh, that's the kind of energy we need on a nice day, right? All right. Oh, goodness. I can't even move on. I'm laughing so much. Okay, let me pull myself together here. Okay, we're coming to the end of our time together. So just a couple of things. Reminder about our mentor learning track. And thank you to my lovely Jessica Patton, who has dropped that link in there for you. So please take a moment to go over and visit the mentor learning track. Just a couple of things that I want to point out to you here. As you know, this has our new Dean learning, and then it has kind of learning for you that you can help, that you can use just in your own role or to help your mentee. So highlighting something for January as well. Resource number 3 under navigating conflict are some sentence stems for healthy conflict that maybe you could use as you practice that 6-step process for accountability conversations that Kiara reviewed with us. And then just some additional resources for organization and time management in March. So I found a really great article, Effective Time Management for Leaders. Very short, but then just some reflection questions for you, and then how you can kind of take what you've learned from that article and share that with your mentee as well. So be sure to explore those resources. And as a lovely reminder, your full lesson observations are due at the end of March. So just making sure that your new deans really have that time, figured out to navigate so it doesn't get caught up, because we are in the time of ice storms and snow days and all of that. So balancing that time there. Are there any questions regarding the mentor learning track that I can answer? Okay. All right. So today is a little different. Normally this time we get into a survey and I ask you, what do you want to talk about? What are some timely topics? But we're going to do something a little bit different. So in the follow-up email, I'm going to have like a pulse check, a little survey for you to use with our first year deans, just to get some information from them. So in your next call, and preferably we have about like a month, because I have a meeting and I'm going to take a peek at our mentoring programs and see what tweaks we want to make for the next school year. But in your next call, if you can ask these questions of your new dean, that would be really helpful for us to gather some information. So what additional support do you need from me? That means you as a mentor to feel more confident and comfortable in your role. What has been the biggest accomplishment in the dean role up to this point? and what has been your biggest challenge specific to the dean role. No worries about writing any of this down because I've created a Google form, which you will just click on and you will just open that up when you're in your meeting, and that way it will capture all of the information there. So again, just a pulse check to check on them. And with that being said, we only have one more check-in, you all, and that is April, near the end of April. So again, thank you so much for mentoring. I know certain things have been a challenge at times, especially with the large number of new deans we've had this year, but you are so appreciated. Those connections are really important throughout our network. And so today I launch you with this. My mentor said, let's go do it, not you go do it. How powerful when someone says let's. We've heard a lot of that today when you've all been saying, open up the presentation, open up the graphs and the reports and walk them through it. So again, thank you so much for joining me today, especially those of you who are calling from the comforts of your home. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a great ice day. Stay warm and take care. We'll see you soon.